This is me and my brother Craig in 1985. We grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, but how did our families get there? Here are my parents, Russell and Leah, in 1972. And here they are today, but their families came to America in very different ways. I'll begin with my father's grandparents on his mother's side, Florence and Alfred Jacobson. They immigrated separately from England and met in Cleveland sometime between 1912 and 1916. My great-grandfather, Alf, made his way to the United States by way of Canada. In Cleveland, he owned a steel company. This is my dad's mother, Elaine Sarah Jacobson, in 1919. She is my only grandparent who was born in the United States. Here is Elaine on her wedding day in 1941 with my grandfather, Frank Joseph Garron. Now this is a picture of Frank as a baby, his sister Elizabeth, and his parents, Helen and Louis Goldberger. My great-uncle Milton is missing from this picture. My great-grandfather Louis was an officer in the Austro-Hungarian Army during World War I. The family immigrated to the United States shortly after the war ended. My grandfather Frank and his family sailed on the SS Lapland from Antwerp to Ellis Island in 1921. This is a copy of the ship manifest for the boat they came over on. My grandfather was 6 years old at the time, and their last name was changed from Goldberger to Garron at Ellis Island. Here is Frank, who's in the middle, with his two older siblings shortly after they arrived in America. Their family came to Cleveland because of the large Hungarian population already living there. To make money, the family started a business making liquor and continued to bootleg during Prohibition. After my grandparents married, my grandfather went into his father-in-law's steel business. My grandfather enlisted in the U.S. Army during World War II. He was part of a unit called the Fighting Blue Devils and was deployed in Italy during the war. A bomb explosion caused him to fall off a mountain, and he was missing in action for several days. My grandmother kept every telegram she received from or about him during the war. My father, Russell, was a baby boomer, and here he is with his older sister, Sandra, or Cookie to those who know her. My mother's mom, Dina, is the little one in the middle. She was born in Poland and was taken with her family by the Nazis when she was 16. She spent most of the war in the Lodz ghetto, but was taken to Auschwitz and then Bergen-Belsen towards the end of the war. She survived with her two sisters. Throughout his entire life, my grandfather's only dream was to see the faces of his family. He and my grandmother wrote letters and petitioned the German government. Shortly after my grandfather passed away, my grandmother received these passport photos of his parents, Anna and Leon Littman. My grandparents met in Poland after they had been liberated and eventually moved to Santa Marina del Luca in Italy. From Italy, they decided to relocate to the newly formed Jewish state of Israel. Their boat was stopped by the British, and my grandparents were placed in a Jewish internment camp in Atlit, Israel, where my Aunt Miriam was born. Once they were allowed to leave Atlit, my grandparents made their way to Tel Aviv, where my mother Leah was born in 1949. My grandfather went into the Israeli army and was given the job of finding and dismantling landmines. My grandmother thought this job too risky and sent my grandfather with my aunt and mother to Cleveland, where her sister lived. My grandmother immigrated 6 months later. After moving to Cleveland, my grandparents had another daughter, Paula, who is named after one of Jack's sisters. The doctor who delivered my aunt offered my grandmother 2 Cadillacs for the baby.